Hi, I'm Lori. My cousin sent me a clip of my sister laughing about how she humiliated me. At first, I didn't say a word, but that video? It cracked open everything. She wasn't just mocking me. She'd taken my credit, my home, my name. And somehow, I was still the villain in her story. How did it get that far? And why did I let it? Maybe you've been the quiet one too. But silence doesn't keep the peace forever. So, what finally pushed me to fight back? I came home later than usual that Thursday. Traffic on Kingston Pike had crawled. The kind of stop and go that tests your patience after a day filled with back-to-back meetings. My shoulder bag slipped down my arm as I pushed through the door and let it fall to the floor. The house was quiet. It usually was, but tonight it felt heavier. I didn't bother with dinner, just kicked off my shoes and collapsed onto the couch, legs aching from a day in heels. I grabbed the remote, flipped on the TV for noise, and instinctively reached for my phone. That's when the message came in. Uncle Ellis, you need to see this. I'm sorry. No context, no explanation, just a link. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Ellis isn't the type to send random videos. He's old school. Birthday calls, yes. Forwarding video clips? Not his thing. Still, curiosity beat hesitation. I tapped the link. The video loaded fast. The image was shaky at first, like someone had filmed it with a phone at their side, but the setting was unmistakable. My parents' backyard. The old crooked oak. That rusty patio set I told them to throw away years ago. And there she was, Skylar, my younger sister, 29, but still acting like a smug college freshman on spring break. She lounged in a lawn chair, drink in hand, surrounded by our cousins and a few of her loud-mouthed friends. Tiffany's hyena laugh cut through the clip. Jake was in the background, egging her on. Skylar tilted her head and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Lori's too dumb to ever kick me out. She just lets me live there, rent-free, like an idiot." Laughter. So much laughter. My grip on the phone tightened. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stared at the screen as she rolled her eyes dramatically, like she was auditioning for a reality show. She really thinks I'm struggling. Poor little me, can't afford my own place? Please, I make more than she even knows. Why would I waste my money when I've got my dumb sister covering everything? Louder laughter. Even Dad chuckled. I watched the whole thing twice before I could even breathe. By the third time, my stomach twisted so hard I thought I'd be sick. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sank into the couch. 3 years. 3 damn years of Skylar living in my house. I took her in when she called crying after her breakup. She'd lost her apartment, said she just needed a little time. I told her, stay as long as you need. And I meant it. But now I saw it for what it was. Manipulation dressed as vulnerability. I opened Netflix, needing something to drown out the noise in my head. A screen popped up. Your email is no longer associated with this account. Huh. I tried Hulu, same result. I checked my email settings. Both accounts had been changed. Different usernames, recovery emails I didn't recognize. And then it hit me. Skylar. She didn't ask. She didn't warn me. She just took over, quietly, deliberately. She'd wormed her way so deep into my life that she'd started replacing me, bit by bit, like peeling the label off a jar and putting her own name on it. I glanced toward the hallway. Her bedroom door, technically my guest room, was closed. I could hear faint music behind it. She was in there, probably scrolling TikTok, laughing at some stupid meme. Maybe even the clip of herself mocking me. I stared at the dark TV screen reflecting back my own face. I didn't recognize myself. This was not who I used to be. I picked up my phone and scrolled back to Ellis's message. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Should I call her out? Storm into her room? Demand an explanation? No. That's what the old me would have done. The one she counted on. The one who forgave and forgot and folded every single time. Not anymore. I typed slowly. Thank you. Please don't say anything to her. I'll handle it. I hit send. Then I sat back. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was tense, charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. Skylar had no idea what she'd started. But I did. The silence from the night before still clung to the air when I got up the next morning. I made my way into the kitchen, poured myself a coffee, and leaned against the counter as the sun crept across the floor. I wasn't really drinking it. I was watching the kitchen, the drawers, the fridge, the cluttered corkboard Skylar had started pinning her own notes to. This used to be mine, all of it. But somehow, without slamming a single door, she'd managed to colonize the space. That morning was quiet. Too quiet. She'd already left for work. Or so she said. She'd been freelancing for almost 6 months now. Some remote gig in digital marketing. I stopped asking for details when I realized every answer got more vague. I sat at the table and found myself remembering the night she called me. It was fall, October, I think. I was still getting used to my divorce papers being real, not just ink on a court document. My evenings were filled with reheated soup and silence. Then my phone rang. Skylar's voice was wrecked, choked, frantic. "He kicked me out, Lori. I don't know what to do. I'm sitting in my car. I have nowhere to go." I didn't even hesitate. I told her to come. She showed up an hour later with 3 duffel bags and a charger cable. That was it. "Just a few weeks," she said. But weeks became months, then years. At first she helped around the house, light cleaning, folding laundry, but slowly it shifted. She started missing job interviews, said she wasn't ready. Then she landed that remote job, and somehow the help disappeared altogether. I took care of the mortgage, bills, groceries, like I always had. She offered once, maybe twice, to pay for toilet paper. The kind of gesture meant to seem generous, but empty in practice. And then there was the card. 6 months ago, I added Skylar as an authorized user on my credit card, not because she asked, but because I thought it'd help her out with basics. I figured she could chip in for shared household stuff. Maybe the electric bill, some groceries. We agreed on that. It wasn't a blank check. It was support, trust. But trust without boundaries? That's not kindness. It's an invitation to be used. It was a Wednesday when the bill hit my inbox. I was at work, scrolling through emails between meetings, when I saw the notification. $489.27, online purchase, delivered to P.O. Box, Franklin, Tennessee. My heart thudded once. Then again, Franklin? That's not even in the same county. I opened the full statement. Designer candles, makeup bundles, limited edition sneakers, not a single charge related to utilities or food. I double-checked the shipping info. P.O. Box. Registered to Skylar Todd. When I confronted her that evening, she barely looked up from her phone. "You left the card linked," she said. "I figured you were okay with it." Like I was supposed to blame myself. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. I just watched her. So casual, so unbothered. "You figured I'd pay for $300 in lipstick and shoes?" She scoffed. "It's not a big deal, Lori. You make way more than me. It's just a few things." I didn't say what I wanted to say. That she hadn't paid a single dime in rent in 3 years. That she'd never once offered. That she treated my home like her Airbnb, except free, and without the decency of cleaning up after herself. I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. A few nights later, I noticed another charge. Smaller this time. $269.55. Same card, same account. This one stung more. It was a gift. I recognized the brand immediately. Omega Tech, luxury smartwatches. She'd sent it to an address in Nashville. The name on the order? Brandon Mitchell, her ex. I shouldn't have checked, but I did. The receipt had a message attached. "You deserve the best. I've got your back, always. Always." I stared at those words until the screen blurred. She hadn't just used me to pamper herself. She was using me to look generous, to play the loyal girlfriend, and she did it behind my back with my card. That night, I didn't eat. I couldn't. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the nightstand, the lamp, my father's old photo, the home I kept alive, the one she was turning into her stage. I opened my wallet, pulled the card out, ran my thumb along the edge. It had wear on it now, curved slightly from use. Use. That word burned in my throat. I stood, walked to the kitchen and opened the drawer, took out a pair of scissors, the kind I used to cut open cereal bags and coupons, and I sliced it, clean through, twice. The pieces curled slightly as they fell to the table. I left them there. No note, No explanation. She hadn't come home yet. But when she did, I wouldn't be waiting with open arms. No more excuses. No more sisterly patience. The next time she tried to charge a single thing, she'd find out her unlimited pass had expired. This wasn't revenge. It was reality. And she was about to meet it, one cut card at a time. I kept the pieces, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder. A line had finally been drawn, even if Skylar hadn't noticed yet. That morning, I sat on the couch, cradling a mug of coffee gone cold hours ago. The TV was off, the blinds still closed. It wasn't about rest. I just didn't want to see the sun hit parts of the living room that no longer felt like mine. The cushions bore the shape of someone else. The coffee table held rings from Skylar's drinks, not mine. Even the throw blanket, my grandmother's, had been replaced by some fuzzy leopard print thing Skylar brought home after one of her shopping detox sprees. I wasn't sure when that trade happened, and that was the point. I'd brushed off the signs. I'd told myself she was just settling in, that I was being dramatic. But this morning I saw everything for what it was. Evidence. A slow erosion of space, of ownership, of self. 3 days earlier, I'd removed her access to my bank app, canceled her name as an authorized user. She hadn't brought it up, not yet. But she would. And before that conversation could happen, I needed to see the whole truth. No more brushing things off. No more shrugging and calling it family stuff. I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Her account was private, of course, but Tiffany Rowe wasn't. And Tiffany posted like it paid her bills. I didn't have to scroll far. A photo stopped me cold, taken in my bedroom. My bedroom. Not just the sheets, not just the curtains. I recognized the dresser, the mirror, even the painting above my headboard. The caption? Queen's Lair chillin' in style. #sleepover vibes, #besties over everything. I stared at the screen, frozen. My jaw clenched. Tiffany. Skylar's loudest friend. The one who always left empty soda cans on the counter, sprayed body mist in the hallway like it was Febreze, and never made eye contact with me unless it was to say, "You got oat milk?" She'd been in my room. That wasn't an accident. That was access, granted. Or more likely, taken. I scrolled through more stories from that weekend. The same one I'd spent in Chattanooga with our cousin Marla. I'd been gone less than 48 hours. Long enough, apparently, for Skylar to throw what looked like a full-blown house party. Confetti. Hookah smoke. People dancing in the living room. Someone doing shots in the kitchen. I remodeled myself. The hallway mirror? Cracked. My mirror. Skylar never mentioned any of it. I remembered coming home that Sunday night and thinking the place smelled off. I opened the windows, lit a candle, told myself it was just stale air from being gone, but now I knew better. I'd been played, not just in money or space, but in silence. She let me walk back into my own home, clean just enough to hide what had happened. I set the phone down and stood slowly, walking to my bedroom. I paused at the threshold. It looked the same bedding, same lighting, but it didn't feel the same. I opened the closet. One of my silk robes was gone, my favorite one. I opened the nightstand drawer. My family photo, the one with mom, dad, me at graduation, had been tucked away. In its place, a bottle of setting spray and a scrunchie I didn't recognize. I sat down on the edge of the bed. This wasn't just someone overstaying their welcome. This was a takeover. One slow enough to mask as comfort, but precise enough to be calculated. She hadn't taken over by force. She didn't need to. She just filled every space I left unguarded. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I just sat there and felt it, the awareness sinking into my spine like ice. I stood and walked to the door, locked it, slowly, deliberately. I couldn't remember the last time I locked my bedroom door, maybe not since high school. But tonight, I did. She'd claimed everything else. But this room was mine. Again. I turned off the light, pulled the covers back, and slid into bed. I whispered to no one in particular. If she thinks this house is hers, she's about to be reminded who signed the deed. The things she took that weren't hers. The next morning started like most. Too early, too quiet, too cold. I shuffled into the kitchen with sleep still behind my eyes and tapped the thermostat on my phone out of habit. I didn't even look up. My fingers knew the routine. But instead of the usual beep or temperature update, I saw a message I'd never seen before. You do not have permission to control this device. I blinked, tapped again. Same result. I frowned and backed out of the app, trying the kitchen lights next. Same issue. Then the garage camera. Nothing. That pit in my stomach, the one I'd been trying to ignore, turned solid. I tossed my phone on the counter and walked over to the router tucked behind the microwave. I bent down and looked at the blinking lights. Still on. Still working. But the password had been changed. By the time I stood up, I already knew. I checked the smart home dashboard through the main portal on my laptop. Everything, lights, thermostat, cameras, even the doorbell feed, was now registered to a new master account. Skylar's. She didn't ask. She didn't warn me. She just took over. Again. I closed the laptop slowly, set it on the table, and turned just in time to see her stroll into the kitchen in her robe. My robe. Morning, she yawned like we were college roommates. She reached into the fridge, grabbed my oat milk, and poured herself a cup of coffee without missing a beat. I didn't say anything, not yet. She glanced at me, then back at her phone. Oh, by the way, I linked the smart system to my profile. Thought it'd be easier to manage since you're always working late. I studied her face. Calm, careless, confident. She really thought she had that kind of say. My jaw clenched. I nodded once, tight. Good to know. She didn't notice the tone. She never did. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. But inside, something was changing, calcifying. That was the word for it, like frost spreading across glass. Later that afternoon, I was sitting at my desk when my phone rang. Uncle Ellis. He rarely called unless it was serious. Hey, everything okay? I asked. There was a pause on the other end, just long enough to make my stomach drop. I wanted to check on you, he said slowly. Skylar called me last week. Said you've been struggling. She mentioned maybe I could help you out. She asked if I could spot you a couple grand. I stopped breathing. She what? She made it sound like you were overwhelmed, that you were trying to keep up with bills after the divorce and weren't saying anything. She said she didn't want to embarrass you by asking directly. I stood there, frozen. Not embarrassed. Not even angry. Humiliated. That wasn't just overstepping. That was character theft. Skylar didn't just take my money or my space. She was taking my narrative and bending it into something pitiful, so she could play the hero. And I bet she sounded convincing. Skylar had always been good at twisting concern into currency. She used my name? I asked. She did, Ellis confirmed. And she said she didn't want you to know she asked. Of course she didn't, because I would have stopped it. I didn't tell Ellis the full story, not yet. I just thanked him for checking in and promised to call him soon. He deserved better than to be caught in her web. That night, I didn't wait for her to bring up the thermostat. I didn't wait for her to apologize or explain. She was on the couch, flipping through some trashy dating show, when I sat across from her at the dining table. She glanced up. What's up? I didn't flinch. I didn't soften. Don't ever speak for me again, I said. She blinked, eyebrows lifting. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Stay out of my systems, stay out of my name, and stay in your place. The air between us froze. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wasn't sure if this was a joke or a challenge. For the first time in years, I didn't follow up with a smile. I didn't pad the blow. I didn't apologize for drawing a line. She watched me like I was someone new. But I wasn't new. I was done. Done with being erased. Done with being twisted into some sob story so she could shine. That line she crossed? That was the last one. And if she crossed it again, I wasn't going to ask her to leave. I was going to make her. 2 days passed without a word from Skylar. She moved through the house like everything was fine, ate my groceries, watched my TV, left her damp towel on the bathroom floor. The usual disrespect, wrapped in the illusion of normalcy. But I wasn't playing that role anymore. By Wednesday morning, I had printed the lease agreement I'd drafted with the help of a friend who worked in real estate. It was basic, clean, 1 page, monthly rent, $1,200, due on the 1st, Utilities split. 30-day notice if she wanted to leave. Standard, reasonable, adult. I slid it into a folder and placed it on the kitchen table just before I left for work. When I got home later that afternoon, she was already there. She must have seen it, because the moment I walked through the door, I heard her laugh. Not the amused kind, the bitter, mocking kind. "You can't be serious," she said, holding the folder like it was a dirty napkin. I didn't look up from where I was taking off my shoes. "I am." She let out a short scoff. "Are you actually trying to charge me rent now? Like I'm some random roommate?" I stood up slowly, walked past her toward the fridge. "It's either that or you find somewhere else." She was still laughing, but I could hear the edge creeping in. "Wow. After everything I've been through? After you begged me to stay when I had nowhere to go?" "I never begged you," I said, voice level. "I offered. For a time. That time's over." Skylar wasn't ready for this version of me. The version that didn't back down. That didn't get emotional. That didn't offer tissue boxes and compromise. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. "You know what your problem is? You think being cold makes you strong. But it just makes you alone." I shrugged. "Then I guess I'm finally making peace with it." She stormed out of the kitchen, muttering something under her breath about family betrayal. I didn't follow, I didn't explain. I'd said all I needed to, but she wasn't done. That night, while scrolling Instagram, I saw it. Tiffany had posted a video, a reel. I didn't even need to hear the audio to know I was being mocked. Skylar was in the frame, holding up the lease and pointing at it dramatically. The caption read, "When your sister turns into your landlord, #family drama #living the dream." The comments were worse. "Oof, cold-blooded. She's your sister. Just talk it out, girl. Charging family rent? For real?" I stared at the screen as the comments piled in. Strangers chiming in on a story they didn't know, laughing at a version of me that didn't exist. Skylar had always been good at flipping the narrative. She didn't argue with truth. She drowned it in a prettier lie. She wanted to make me look cruel so she could look generous. Wanted to paint me as the villain so she could be the underdog. She didn't care that it was my house, my bills, my name on the deed. She just cared about controlling the story. And for years I'd let her. Not anymore. I opened my laptop and pulled up her email. Subject, documentation, your move. I attached the lease, signed and timestamped. No note, no explanation, just the facts, and a clock ticking. The next morning her door stayed shut. She didn't mention the lease, didn't knock on my bedroom door, didn't text. But I knew she saw the email. She always had her phone glued to her hand. She just didn't answer because that's who she was. If she ignored it long enough, maybe I'd fold. She'd miscalculated. At lunch, I stepped outside work to stretch my legs, scrolling my phone like I usually did during breaks. I didn't expect what I saw. A coworker had sent me a message. "Girl, this is you?" Attached was a TikTok link. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play icon. My stomach already knew it would drop. I clicked. Skylar's face filled the screen, mid-eye roll, lease in hand. She stood in my kitchen, using my counter as a stage. "And this," she said to the camera, waving the lease, "is what happens when your sister forgets what family means. Guess who's charging rent now? #landlord sister." She smiled, tossed the lease onto the table dramatically, and added a final jab. "Guess I should start leaving my shoes outside too." The video cut out with a fake laugh track layered over it. It already had thousands of views, hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. "Oh mo! Girl, your sister trippin'. She must be real bitter. Family don't treat each other like tenants. You're the real one, Skylar." Each one was a nail. Not in my coffin, but in whatever fragile memory of sisterhood still lingered between us. I swallowed hard. The sting wasn't just public shame. It was betrayal, on blast. She didn't just dismiss me in private. She humiliated me in front of strangers, and she enjoyed it. But humiliation didn't last long this time. It burned itself into resolve. By the time I got home, I'd made my decision. I sat on the couch, opened my laptop, and forwarded the lease to the property management company I'd spoken with last week, just in case she refused to engage. I didn't need permission anymore. The message from their team came back within the hour. "We'll formalize everything and send the agreement from our end." Let us know if you'd like us to handle further communication. Yes, I absolutely would. I replied simply, please proceed. When the formal notice went out, I poured myself a glass of water. Not wine, not coffee. Something neutral, something steady. That's how I felt. Neutral. Steady. That evening, just after sunset, Skylar finally cracked. She came out of her room like a storm, phone in hand, expression wild. She didn't ask about the lease. She didn't ask about the email. She asked about Ellis. You really told Uncle Ellis about the video? She snapped. I didn't even look up from my laptop. No, I said. Uncle Ellis sent me the first one, remember? She froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her confidence took a visible hit, and I watched it happen in real time. She backed up, blinked fast, and then let out a weak laugh. Okay, well, it wasn't even a big deal. It was a joke. Everyone took it that way. Then why'd you try to get Ricky to delete it? I asked quietly. She went still. I turned my head slowly. Yeah, he told someone. Who told me? Now it was my turn to stare. You weren't joking, Skylar. You were performing. You always are. She crossed her arms. I didn't mean for it to blow up. But you meant for people to see it, I shot back. You meant to make me look petty, bitter, controlling. Her voice dropped like she was trying to reel things in. It wasn't that serious. It was calculated, I replied. And cowardly. She glared at me. Oh, so now I'm a coward? No, I said, standing. You're someone who doesn't know how to handle being held accountable. I moved past her, pulled out my phone, and opened the message from the property manager. By the way, the lease is now legally binding. You either pay or you leave. Skylar's jaw clenched. Her fingers twitched like she wanted to throw something. But she didn't, and I didn't wait. I walked into my room, locked the door, and let the silence confirm what I already knew. She wasn't going to back down without a fight, but neither was I. She knew what was coming. And still, she chose war. It had been a week since I sent the lease, and the house still felt strange. Skylar hadn't said a word, hadn't shown up to confront me. But things had shifted in the air, like a storm waiting to hit. The tension was palpable, hanging thick in the quiet corners of the house, where we used to laugh, argue, and talk. Now there was just the looming weight of unspoken words. I reached over and grabbed my phone from the nightstand, tapping the screen to check the temperature. My fingers brushed the cold surface. The thermostat app wouldn't connect. I tried again, but it gave me the same message. You don't have permission to control this device. I felt a tightness in my chest. I checked the Wi-Fi, then my TV. Both were disconnected. Skylar had done it. She'd locked me out of everything. Again. I stared at the blank screen of my phone for a moment, trying to wrap my mind around it. I wasn't surprised. It was Skylar, after all. She'd always been good at erasing me, replacing my presence with hers. But this felt like another level of control. The house was still mine, but it didn't feel like it. Not anymore. I went into the kitchen, trying to shake off the chill that had settled in. As I made my coffee, the silence between us felt nuclear. No shouting, no arguments, just the coldness of knowing she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and I hadn't said a word. Not yet, but I would. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed again, a notification from a coworker. Did you see Skylar's post? I opened the message and clicked the link to her Facebook page. My stomach dropped. There it was, her post, loud and proud. A long caption with vague emotional undertones. It hurts when family throws you out during your lowest. But I guess some people never really saw you as more than a burden. She had posted it less than an hour ago. Already there were dozens of comments. Some were from people I barely knew. Some were from my family. People who had no clue what was really going on. I read through the comments, each one a pinprick. I can't believe she did this to you. Family is supposed to support each other. That's messed up. You deserve better, Skylar. This is what happens when you don't treat family right. I couldn't stop reading. The lies, the way she spun the narrative. Skylar had turned me into the villain. Again. And as I read, I realized something. She wasn't just controlling the house. She was trying to control how everyone else saw me. She wanted them to think I was the heartless one, the one who didn't care, the one who kicked her sister to the curb. The post had been shared, commented on, liked. It was working. People were sympathizing with her, with the lie she'd created. I slammed my phone down onto the counter, the glass of water on the side jumping from the impact. But I wasn't going to let this slide. Not anymore. I stood up and went to my laptop, opening up the email from the property management company. It was time to make sure the next step was as official as it could get. I typed up a message, adding the signed lease as an attachment. Subject: documentation, your move. I hit send. At that moment, I knew there was no going back. The game had changed. I had drawn the line, and now I was done playing nice. Later that evening, Skylar confronted me, but it wasn't about the lease. It wasn't even about the house. It was about the video. "Did you talk to Uncle Ellis?" she demanded, her voice sharp. I didn't even flinch. "No, he sent me the video." Her eyes flickered with panic, a flash of something other than the usual indifference. She didn't expect that. I could see it in her face. "Are you kidding me? Why would you even—" I cut her off. "You wanted to make me look bad. You thought if you flipped the story, if you made me look cruel, it would make you the victim. But it's not working, Skylar. I'm done with it." Her lips twisted, and she took a step back. "You're overreacting." I shook my head slowly. "No, I'm not overreacting. I'm done with you taking everything I've built and trying to turn it into your stage. I'm done being your scapegoat. You don't get to write my story anymore." She blinked, her shoulders stiffening. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was just a joke. But I wasn't buying it anymore." "No, it wasn't just a joke. You wanted to ruin me, Skylar. But I'm not going to let you get away with it." She stood silent for a moment, trying to decide what to say. But the words never came. Instead, she turned and walked away, disappearing into her room. And just like that, the silence returned. The silence that had settled in after her first betrayal. The silence that had become normal. But now, it felt different. It felt final. Later that night, I drafted the 14-day notice to vacate under the legal lease agreement. I printed out 2 copies, one for me and one for her. I left it on the kitchen counter. No words, just a quiet stare. Then I walked to her room and began packing her things. I started with the easiest items, the books on her dresser, the clothes strewn across the floor. I carefully folded the shirts, picking up the things she had left behind as if they were mine to deal with. I didn't say a word to her. I didn't need to. She had crossed every boundary I had, and now it was time for her to leave. The clock was ticking, and she knew it. The first day after I gave her the notice, I didn't see her at all. Her bedroom door remained shut. I walked past it in the morning on my way to work, and again at night after dinner, but there was no light, no music, no sign of life behind it. On the second day, it was the same. The third, still nothing. I didn't knock. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. Whatever games she was trying to play, disappearing to stir guilt or create suspense, I wasn't playing anymore. On the 4th day, I woke up, made my coffee, and passed the hallway like I had every other morning. But this time, the door was open. The room was empty. Her bed was untouched. The suitcase that usually sat beside her closet was gone. And the power cord she always left half-draped across the floor was nowhere to be seen. She'd left. No note, no text, no confrontation. But I knew it wasn't over. That evening, I returned home from work, slipped off my shoes, and sat on the couch. I just started scrolling through emails when the front door flung open. Skylar stood there, hair disheveled, face flushed with rage. Her coat was halfway off, and her eyes locked onto me with a kind of fury I hadn't seen in years. "You really filed the eviction?" she snapped. "Are you insane?" I didn't even look up from my phone. "You had the lease. You made your decision." "Seriously?" She stepped closer. "After everything I've done for you, you're just throwing me out?" I finally met her gaze. "Everything you've done for me?" I scoffed, setting the phone down. "You used me, humiliated me, and tried to turn people against me. If you think that counts as doing something for me, then, yeah, I'm throwing you out." She crossed her arms. "I was there when you were going through your divorce. I listened. I supported you. And now, what? I'm the bad guy?" You were there, I said quietly, because I let you be. I opened the door. You were crying, begging for a few weeks of space. I didn't know that meant turning my house into your playground for 3 years. She bit her lip, searching for something to throw back, but I didn't give her the chance. You mocked me online, lied about me to our family, made a joke out of a boundary I had every right to set. You crossed that line, Skylar. She scoffed, eyes narrowing. I'll go to the family. I'll tell them you kicked me out just to feel big. Go ahead, I said, standing up, but tell the whole story, or I will. She froze. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I continued. I'm doing it to stop letting you hurt me. There it was. Truth, stripped bare. She stood there, blinking, her mouth slightly open but no sound coming out. The strength she always used to manipulate, the performance she leaned on, it faltered. Without another word, she turned and left. This time she didn't slam the door. 2 days passed, no noise, no Skylar. Then, just after lunch on Sunday, I got a text. I moved out. Good luck, Lori. That was it. No apology, no thank you, no guilt trip. Just a final message like a receipt for 3 years of damage. I stood in the middle of my now quiet home. It felt larger somehow, like the walls had taken a breath, like the air had cleared after years of storm. I walked down the hall, passing the empty guest room, my room now again. I didn't rush to clean it. I didn't touch the space. I just let it sit, untouched, in its new quiet. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to justify anything. Not my choices, not my boundaries, not even the silence. I didn't cry, I didn't celebrate, I just sat on my couch and breathed. 1 week later, the house still felt a little too quiet, but this time, it was mine. I noticed it in the smallest ways. The silverware drawer was finally organized the way I liked it. No more mismatched mugs. No more makeup-stained towels left crumpled in the bathroom sink. Even the thermostat responded to my touch again, like it had been waiting for me to take back control. Every morning I woke to silence. No music thumping from the guest room, no slammed cabinet doors, just bird song, filtered through open blinds I hadn't realized were closed for so long. Funny how peace can feel like grief when you're used to chaos. It wasn't that I missed her. I didn't. But I couldn't deny the echo she left behind. That ghost of routine, the way my ears still expected her footsteps or her dramatic sighs when she passed me in the hallway. I spent the weekend doing things I hadn't done in months. I rearranged the living room, shifted the couch so I could see the window better. I bought new sheets in soft blue, my favorite color, not hers. I cooked dinner for one and poured a glass of wine without worrying she'd come in to finish the bottle and leave the empty on the counter. Little victories, quiet wins. And still, every so often, I'd find something of hers tucked away. A hairbrush under the couch, a sock behind the dryer, her name still logged into a streaming app. I'd take a breath, delete it, toss it, move on. Closure isn't always a dramatic slam of the door. Sometimes it's a slow reclaiming. One drawer at a time. On Wednesday, Uncle Ellis stopped by. He didn't announce it, just knocked like he always had, a 12-pack of sparkling water in one hand, and a neutral smile on his face. He stepped inside, looked around, and gave a small nod. Looks better already. We didn't talk about her right away. We didn't have to. He sat across from me on the couch, sipping his drink, glancing at the window like he was giving me space to start if I wanted to. I waited a while, then asked, "Do you think she'll be okay?" He didn't rush his answer, just scratched his jaw and looked thoughtful. "Eventually," he said, "but not until she figures out the world doesn't owe her a stage." I stared into my glass. Did I do the right thing? You didn't do the easy thing. That's not the same. We sat in silence for a while after that, and it wasn't awkward. It was grounding, like sitting in the eye of a storm that had finally passed. That night, I wandered through each room. I'd cleaned up most of what she left, but I hadn't touched her old room. Not really. I stood in the doorway now, arms crossed, looking at the blank walls and bare mattress. She hadn't taken everything, just the things she could carry. But it didn't matter. What lingered wasn't stuff. It was history, guilt, the echoes of every time I'd let her rewrite my role in her story. But now, That chapter was closed. I didn't hate her. I didn't wish her harm, but I couldn't carry her weight anymore. She wasn't my responsibility, not her drama, not her lies, not the way she clung to victimhood like armor. I was allowed to let go, even if it made me look cold, even if it meant being misunderstood. Because the truth is, I hadn't kicked her out to punish her. I'd done it to protect myself. She'd spent years painting me as the villain, as the uptight sister, the joyless landlord, the bitter divorcee. But I'd finally realized something. I didn't need to defend myself against her story. I just needed to write my own. Later that evening, I stood by the back door sipping tea. The sun was setting in soft golds, washing over the garden I hadn't touched in months. I made a mental note to pick up new plants, maybe lavender. Something that could thrive quietly, without stealing all the sunlight. A small notification pinged on my phone. It was an old photo someone tagged me in. Me and Skylar years ago, arms slung around each other at a family barbecue. She was laughing. I was smiling, half distracted. I didn't untag myself. I didn't delete it. I just stared for a while, then let it fade back into the feed. We were sisters. That didn't change. But family doesn't mean allowing yourself to be erased, and silence doesn't mean surrender. Not anymore. You know, looking back, I used to think being a good sister meant being available, being understanding, being quiet. But I've learned something the hard way. Being quiet doesn't make you kind. It just makes you a target for people who think love comes with no boundaries. I didn't lose a sister in this story. I lost an illusion. That blood alone is enough. It's not. Respect, honesty, accountability, those are what build family. Without them, you're just roommates with matching DNA. If you've ever been made to feel guilty for drawing a line, if you've ever been called cold for choosing peace over pleasing people, you're not alone, and you're not wrong. This isn't a story about revenge, it's about reclaiming your worth. So let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace or keeping yourself intact? Did you speak up? Or are you still carrying the weight of silence? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, where are you watching from? If this story hit close to home, drop a 1 in the chat so I know I'm not alone. And if it didn't sit right with you, I want to hear that too. What would you have done differently? And hey, if this video made you think or feel anything real, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story. We tell real ones here. For people who've lived through the gray areas. For people just like you. Take care of yourself. Take up space. And remember, saying no isn't rude. Sometimes it's survival.